Egyptian gods are a huge system of beliefs and traditions of the ancient Egyptian people. Everything visible in nature was taken by the ancients as a visible image of a deity. The earth, the sky, the sun, the stars, the mountains, volcanoes, rivers, streams, trees, all these were deities, the history of which was sung by ancient poets, and their images were sculpted by sculptors. Hello, friends. Today we will touch on the topic of mythology and get acquainted with the gods of Egypt, the faith in which has reached our days. Subscribe. Your support is very important to me. Thank you. Goddess Isis is the main goddess of the Egyptian religion, who was the sister and wife of the god Osiris, the mother of Horus, and the Egyptian kings, who were originally considered earthly incarnations of the falcon-headed god. The symbol of Isis was the royal throne, the sign of which is often placed on the head of the goddess. Since the New Kingdom, the cult of the goddess has become closely intertwined with the cult of Hathor, as a result of which Isis sometimes has a headdress in the form of a solar disk framed by the horns of a cow. The sacred animal of Isis as a mother goddess was considered to be the great white cow of Heliopolis, the mother of the Memphis bull Apis. Very ancient, the cult of Isis probably originates from the Delta. Here was one of the most ancient cult centers of the goddess, Hebet, called Isaeum by the Greeks. Now this is the modern city of Bebeit el-Hagar, currently lying in ruins. In the Heliopolitan theological system, Isis was revered as the daughter of the god Geb and the goddess Nut. In myths, some of which have reached our time only in the famous retelling of Plutarch, the goddess is well known as the faithful wife of Osiris, whose body she found during long wanderings after the god was killed by his brother Seth. Having collected the remains of Osiris, which had been cut into pieces, Isis, with the help of the god Anubis, made the first mummy out of them. Having breathed the breath of life into the embalmed corpse of Osiris for a few moments with her wings, the goddess magically conceived her son Horus from him. In the temple of Hathor in Dendera and the temple of Osiris in Abydos, relief compositions have been preserved, which show the secret act of conception of a son by the goddess in the form of a falcon spread over the mummy of her husband. In memory of this, Isis was often depicted as a beautiful woman with bird wings, with which she protects Osiris, the king, or simply the deceased. Isis is often depicted kneeling, wearing a white afnet bandage, mourning each deceased as she once mourned Osiris himself. According to legend, Osiris became the ruler of the underworld, while Isis gave birth to Horus in a reed nest in the swamps of Chemis. Numerous statues and reliefs depict the goddess breastfeeding her son, who took the form of a pharaoh. Along with the goddesses Nut, Tefnut, and Nephthys, Isis, who bears the epithet beautiful, is present at the birth of each pharaoh, helping the queen mother to relieve herself from pregnancy. Isis is great in charms, first among the gods, mistress of spells and secret prayers. She is called upon in trouble. Her name is pronounced to protect children and family. According to legend, in order to acquire secret knowledge and gain magical power, the goddess molded a snake from the saliva of the aging god Ra and the earth, which bit the solar deity. In exchange for healing, Isis demanded that Ra tell her his secret name, the key to all the mysterious forces of the universe, and became the Lady of the Gods, the one who knows Ra in his own name. With her knowledge, Isis, one of the patron deities of medicine, healed the infant Horus, stung by scorpions in the swamps. Since then, like the goddess Selket, she was sometimes revered as the great mistress of scorpions. The goddess passed on her secret powers to Horus, thereby arming him with great magical power. With the help of cunning, Isis helped her son Horus to defeat Seth during the dispute over the throne and the inheritance of Osiris, and to become the ruler of Egypt. Bastet in Egyptian mythology was the goddess of joy and fun. Bastet's sacred animal is the cat. Bastet was depicted as a woman with a cat's head. Bastet's attribute is the musical instrument of the sistrum. The center of her cult, which dates back to the Bubastid dynasty in the 10th century BC, is Bubastis. Bastet's son is Mahes. Bastet was identified with Mut and was also venerated as the Eye of Ra by Tefnut, Sekhmet, and Hathor. In this sense, Bastet also acquired the functions of the sun's eye. Herodotus reported annual celebrations in honor of Bastet, which were accompanied by dances. The ancient Greeks identified Bastet with Artemis. As mentioned above, the cat was considered the sacred animal of the goddess Bastet. The ancient Egyptians treated this animal with respect. The name cat in Egyptian sounds simple, Mao or meow, and the attitude towards the ancient Egyptian meow as the embodiment of the goddess Bastet was at least respectful. Cats were members of the family and were treated with all respect, both during life and after death. She was revered because they saw in her the earthly embodiment of the goddess Bastet. These animals were buried with honors, mummified like pharaohs, and the penalty for killing them was the death penalty. No less respect is treated in the countries of the Far East, questioning the antiquity of the feline breed among the Egyptians. If a cat died in a family, the owners of the cat and their relatives shaved their eyebrows as a sign of mourning. The cat's body was embalmed and placed in a sarcophagus, after which it was placed in one of the necropolises specially designed for the burial of cats. Osiris of Egypt was Osiris. He is very grand and an extra miracle. According to references in ancient Egyptian texts and the story of Plutarch, Osiris was the father of Geba and the goddess, and Nut, brother of Isidis, brother of Nephthys, Seth, father of Horus. The first day of this was used as the first god, inheriting the power of his great-grandfather Ra-Atum, grandfather of Shu and father of Geb. Reigning over Egypt, he weaned people from a wild way of life and cannibalism, taught them to sow grains, barley and spelt, plant seeds, bake bread, make beer and wine, and then mine and process copper and gold ores. He taught people the art of medicine and the construction of cities. The evil god of the desert, Usir's younger brother, Seth, who wanted to rule in his place, devised a way to destroy Usir. Después de la introducción to Usir, fue destruido por él. Seth, of 72 years, a Ukrainian sarcophagus and a magical sarcophagus, helped to use the earth and heaven. When the box was thrown into the sarcophagus, especially according to its size, the conspirators slammed the lid, poured some liquid into it, and threw it into the mud of the waters. The current washed the box ashore, and a heather bush growing there embraced it with its branches. Usir's faithful wife, Isis, found her husband's body, miraculously extracted the life force hidden in it, and conceived a son from the dead Usir. The birth of our son after another, Nila and Rodel, and then a woman named Gorom. When Horus grew up, he entered into a struggle with Set. Anubis gave Horus Udjat, the eye of clairvoyance, the eye of the soul's vision. At first he was defeated, and even lost his eye in battle, the magic eye of Horus, but then fortune changed his side. Seth's father. Usir came to life, but did not want to remain on earth, and leaving the throne on earth with his son Horus, began to reign and believe in the judgment in Duat. To begin with, this series consists of 14 episodes, about 7, and ends with these songs in the world of Egypt. Isidis, young, comes to Abydos. Plutarch in his treatise on Isis and Oiris combines this with the version, twice, which is most plausible to the original story. In previous versions, Osiris says that he did not erase his sister Nephthys. La degradación de Osiris capturó a Isis y Anubis. The sun god Ra in Egyptian mythology was the sun god. The center of his cult was the city of Heliopolis. Like many other solar deities, he was embodied in the form of a falcon, and sometimes also a huge cat, depicted as a man with a falcon's head, crowned with a solar disk. In many texts, Ra is called the daytime sun. Ra also acts as the god of the deceased king. Later, in the funeral cult, he was pushed aside by Osiris, continuing to play a significant role in the afterlife. He participated in the afterlife court, gave warmth and light to the dead who exited their tombs during the day. The veneration of Ra also spread to Nubia. He began to be considered the creator of the world and people who arose from his tears, the father of the gods, the father of the king, which is reflected in the title of the pharaoh, the son of Ra. Ra was identified with Horus, Amun, Ptah, Osiris, and other deities. Many other deities are also associated with Ra. The daughters of Ra, who help him defeat his enemies, are Serket, who was revered as his eye Sekhmet, Tefnut, Hathor. The guardian of Ra is the fire-breathing snake Uto. In Egyptian mythology, Seth was considered the god of chaos and disorder, who was depicted in the form of a man with the head of a mysterious animal, possibly an anteater, but most likely some creature that does not belong to this world. Seth can also appear completely in the form of an animal, with the body of a jackal, a forked tail raised high. Seth can also take the form of a donkey, a pig, or a hippopotamus. The earliest image of Seth has been preserved on a carved ivory object found in one of the tombs of El Mahasna, dated to the era of Nagad Thamrin I. The figure of the sacred animal, Seth, has also been preserved on the mace of the archaic king Scorpio. According to surviving mythological texts, Seth was the son of the heavenly goddess Nut, the brother of Osiris, Isis, and Nebuchadnezzar, who was also his wife. According to one version, he was born in the area of the city of Su. The birthday of Seth, which fell on the third of the 5 epigomenal days, was considered especially unlucky. The pharaoh did practically no business on this day. Seth was considered the ruler of the deserts, everything hostile to the Nile Valley, was revered as the patron of distant lands and foreigners, along with the Syro-Phoenician goddesses Anat and Ashtoreth, who were considered his wives in the New Kingdom. Legends say that Seth killed his brother Osiris, and then had a long and cunning dispute with his nephew Horus, who wanted to avenge his father's death for dominion over the earth. During several battles, Seth tore out Horus's eye, which became the great amulet Ujat. At the same time, Horus castrated Seth, thereby depriving him of the main part of his essence. Seth has long been associated with male sexual power. According to one legend, Seth's front leg, cut off in battle, was thrown into the northern part of the sky, where the gods chained it with golden chains to the eternal supports of the heavens and assigned the formidable hippopotamus Isis Hesemut to guard it. God Anubis in Egyptian mythology was considered the patron god of the dead. He was worshipped in the form of a lying black jackal or a wild dog, or in the form of a man with the head of a jackal or a dog. Anubis was considered the judge of the gods. The center of the cult of Anubis was the city of the 17th nome of Kassa, or the Greek Sinopolis, also the city of the dog. But his veneration spread very early throughout Egypt. During the Old Kingdom, Anubis was considered the god of the dead. His main epithets are Kentiamenti, the one who is in front of the country of the west, the ruler of the kingdom of the dead, or standing in front of the palace of the gods. according to the pyramid texts. Anubis was the main god in the kingdom of the dead. He counted the hearts of the dead, while Osiris mainly personified the deceased pharaoh, who came to life like a god. From the end of the 3rd millennium BC, the functions of Anubis were transferred to Osiris, and Anubis is included in the circle of gods associated with the mysteries of Osiris. Together with Thoth, he was present at the trial of Osiris. One of the most important functions of Anubis was the preparation of the body of the deceased for embalming and turning it into a mummy. Anubis was credited with laying hands on the mummy and turning the deceased with the help of magic into an enlightened one, reviving thanks to this gesture. Anubis placed children around the deceased in the burial chamber of Horus and gave each a canopic jar with the entrails of the deceased to protect them. Anubis is closely associated with the necropolis in Thebes, on the seal of which a jackal is depicted lying over 9 captives. Anubis was considered the brother of the god Ptah. According to Plutarch, Anubis was the son of Osiris and Nephthys. The ancient Greeks identified Anubis with Hermes, one of the epithets of Anubis, defining him as the god of embalming. His fetish was a skin, bandaged in linen shrouds, which was attached to a pole, placed in a vessel, and placed in the tomb of the deceased.